Canessa back with you here on Shovio.com, and joining me now, as he did yesterday live, is Fernando Gonzalez. Fernando is a former student and graduate of St. Anthony High School. He graduated in the year 2002. He was an honor student while he was there, especially in his senior year, and was involved in all sorts of activities, including the student council, and he was a member of the varsity baseball team for 4 years. And when we were talking yesterday about this whole broken education system in Central Falls, Rhode Island, our buddy Nando certainly had some ideas of his own because of what he went through during his 4 years at St. Anthony's. So I thought it would be good if he could come back with us today and talk a bit more about that. So Fernando, as always, buddy, thank you very much for spending some time with me here today.
No, thanks for having me, man.
Okay, buddy. All right, let's get right into it. Okay, you started talking yesterday about St. Anthony's. How much does St. Anthony's as a whole need to be shut down or reformatted, whatever you want to call it, for the benefit of the kids?
I wouldn't go as far as to say that it should get shut down. Between all the jobs that would get lost, and it's really one of the very few, if not the only, affordable private school high school in Jersey City or even in the area. So I definitely think that's not really the way to go. However, there really needs to be just a complete massive overhaul of that school. When I heard the news break about this whole thing that happened in Rhode Island, at first, I was like, what the hell's going on? How could they seriously lay off an entire teacher faculty? Like, it behooves me. I couldn't understand it. And, as I looked deeper into it, the answers started to become a little more clear. Pathetic test scores and, how half a student body in high school can be illiterate and does not know how to read. It's beyond me, especially in 2010. So the connection to me to St. Anthony's is striking, and something definitely has to get done. The way I look at things, I'm no expert in this, but the way I look at child development in general is I look at it in three parts. All right, you have the parents, you have the student, and you have the education system. All right, the teachers, the administration, whatever. I think all three share responsibility in child development. All right. Now, with that said, I don't think they're all equal, nor do I think that the percentage of the responsibility stays the same throughout a child's life and into its late teens and manhood or womanhood or whatever. Early development, kindergarten, first, second, before that, of course, it's a parent's responsibility to instill the values of being a good person, period. So, yes, I agree with anyone who says that it goes down to the parents. I agree 100%. However, what I don't agree with is it just starts and ends there. Because, as a student at such a young age, like in elementary school, let's say, you're of course responsible for what you do, but at that age, you're still being molded. And that's where I think the education system comes in. At that age, you're still young enough where you can be molded. And yes, they may experience negative things at their house, but a positive role of an education system can at least somewhat curve that a little bit. I was born and raised in Jersey City. I grew up in the hood. Tim Gillette, that's always on there. Same thing. Michael Gillette, that's on here once in a while. Same thing. We all turned out fine. And it's because all three of our of the responsibilities, I believe, were there. They all took proper. But I think as a child grows, I think the responsibility somewhat becomes less and less for the parent. Because now, as a student gets into high school, they're no longer they're being molded still, but not quite to the sense of when they were young. Once you start going into the high school age, you're more aware of things. And I think at that age is when you got to start taking some personal responsibility. And that's when I think that education really has to step in and kind of finish the job. Because once you go to college, for the most part, you're going away, you're not going to have mom and daddy backing you up, and you have to start making your own decisions. So when you have a school like St. Anthony's where, unfortunately, a lot of the cases, the first part, the parenting, fails miserably because you have a lot of kids who grew up in rowdy environments, bad environments, single parents. Not to say all single parents are bad. My mom was practically a single parent for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of negativity growing up in as far as the responsibility of the parent. Then as a student, as you get older, you have to kind of start being aware of the things. And when you have an administration, the school, teachers and stuff telling you, look, you're not heading to the right path, I think at that point now it's the student's responsibility to take the initiative and start making a positive role for themselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So my whole thing is people are too narrow-minded. You have some people say it's the teacher's responsibility. You have some people say it's the student's responsibility. You have some people who are hardcore about it's the parents. And I think they're all right, but only to a certain extent. Again, I think they all have to share responsibility.
We had a philosophy at Oratory Prep, which is where I taught.
Totally fail.
Uh-oh. Okay, all right. Well, when I was teaching in Oratory Prep, we had a philosophy that the education of our students was a collaborative effort. And just as you said, it was an agreement between the parents, the teachers, and the students. My question for you then is, are you telling me that you feel as if when you spent those 4 years at St. Anthony's, of which I was present for 3 3/4, that they failed you in a sense in not giving their end of the bargain as far as the education of you, your friends, your classmates, and those who were younger than you?
Absolutely, because again, as I said, once you get into high school, your life really starts to change. It's not like elementary school and things are kind of spoon-fed. In high school, you got to start making decisions. A lot of schools, you got to actually pick what classes you want. High school, you really need to start thinking about your future. And again, this is the problem I have at St. Anthony's. Well, do we freeze? Okay.
Yeah, just froze for a second. Yeah.
I also think a huge responsibility also is to the teachers. Especially in an environment where the kids are lacking so much at home and in their environment, I think it's almost a responsibility as a teacher to somewhat step in and do your best to show them. So you have to get like St. Anthony's where, basically it's all about the basketball program. It's basketball, and that's it. They really don't care about anything else. When I was at St. Anthony's, okay, a vast majority of my teachers were under 25, okay? And when I say under, I'm talking my geometry teacher was 21 years old, all right? Barely out of college. There was another one that was 22 years old, and I believe you were even...
I was 24.
Yeah, you were 24. So it almost becomes, I got to put into words. As an administration, you got to make sure that, like I was saying, that your end of the bargain is taken care of. And when you have a subpar faculty, not to say you were, because there were some good teachers in that school. That's probably the only good thing about that school were some of them. At the end of the day, it's also about education. It's the main focus is education. So I don't know if I'm kind of straight off a little bit here, but what do you call it? Yeah. So again, you have St. Anthony's where they have subpar teachers. You have teachers teaching them magic tricks and card games in the middle of class. You have religion teachers really not even talking about religion. They're talking about stuff on TMZ and things like this nature. Now this is...
You say TMZ?
Yes. These are things that I hear from my little brother who goes to that school right now. I'm not going to say his name, of course, but he goes to the school.
What year is he?
He's a junior.
Okay. Now, these kind of things were happening when I was there and when you were a student there. And without... I don't mean to interrupt you, too, but I want you to give me, without naming the names of a teacher or anything of that nature, a concrete example of what you recall from your days there, where, let's say, you were supposed to be in an English class and you weren't doing English, or if you were in a math class and you weren't doing math, and what you were actually doing.
Well, let's see. One math class, our teacher walked in. This is for the midterms, mind you. Walked in, wrote some stuff on the board, put his head down, said, copy it. Just make sure at least a few people change some answers, get them wrong, and he went to sleep. He wrote the midterm and the answers on the board with the answers, okay? Told us, everyone copy. You choose amongst yourselves who wants to put a few wrong down or not to make it not seem too obvious, and put his head down for the remainder of the period. This is a midterm. Okay, and then did the same thing for the final.
Did I go to high school with this kid?
No, no.
I'll edit that part out. If no, okay.
So yes, you have that example, and in the same class, you would have times where he would come in again, put his head down, or say, "I don't give a shit, do whatever you want."